Welcome to Dr. M Health Corner Talk Show. Welcome. I'm Dr. Unati, your health talk show host, and today it is 12:15 p.m. MST, 2:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Welcome. I see people are coming in. Today we have an interesting topic. It's going to be quite unique because there's going to be shared stories. So bring your spouses, bring your friends, bring your colleagues, bring your kids. They could come and watch here. And basically, our topic today is quite interesting. We're talking about depression, postpartum depression. And I am so fortunate to bring a friend here, a colleague, who's going to share her personal story. You have seen Dr. Latonya here. I brought her a few months ago. So we're going to talk about her own story. She's going to share her journey and how she got to the other side. So again, I'm going to introduce Dr. Latonya. She's Dr. Latonya Thomas. She's an RN. She's a legal nurse consultant in Texas, US, and also runs other businesses, including her meditation studio. Welcome, Doc.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm so excited about this topic, because, Dr. Latonya, postpartum depression, we don't talk about it, and yet it's so common. And unfortunately, it's so underdiagnosed,
Yeah.
even, I mean, you're right? It's so underdiagnosed. And I would love women who are watching us here, even actually fathers, because we do see paternal postpartum depression, even dads. They get affected by postpartum depression. So today, guys, we're gonna talk about this. Dr. Latonya is gonna take us through her own journey, how she was diagnosed, how she was feeling, and we're gonna just take right through the topic. Dr. Latonya, tell me, how did you feel? How did you get to your diagnosis? Do you wanna share your journey with us?
So originally, I had been a nurse for probably about 5 years into it, and then I had my first child, my son. I went through changes probably fairly early on, like the first month or so. Any first time mom, you're overprotective. You don't want to take your child anywhere. You don't want to take them out of the house. Like, it's just, you want to be in your own space, and that kind of was the start of everything. um Moving forward, I had a few nurse friends at the time that, kind of helped me. They had kids. They had two or three kids, so they kind of, helped me break through that. After the first month, it's like, no, you have to, start maneuvering and getting out the house, because if you don't, you're gonna run yourself crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So literally, I knew something was wrong, because after my mom and my aunt left, they came and they helped me for about 3 weeks after having my son. So like I said, I knew. And, knowing, being a nurse, my thought process was, oh, I can't be sick. I can't have mental issues. I can't stop, because I have to care for patients and I have to be this mom and take care of this kid. So you put all of those stressors onto yourself, trying to be perfect, this perfect individual, this perfect mom, and it takes a toll. So the original time I knew something was wrong, they tell you can go to your OBGYN or go to your primary to, get evaluated. I wound up going to my primary, and just the whole conversation with the nurse and the doctor, it just didn't I didn't get that vibe that they cared. Um
Mm-hmm.
so it was kind of just like, okay, you're going through this, and it's like, okay, well, let's just start some trial medication. So they threw
Right.
me, some medications out of the office, and I didn't think that was sufficient enough for me. So yeah, I took the trials, I brought them home, and I decided not to take them.
Mm.
Boy, was that the worst decision ever. Because literally, I think maybe a few weeks after that, um, I started having panic attacks and anxiety attacks, where I would have the full blown palpitations. I would get dizzy, sweat, the whole 9 yards. And it was a couple of times I drove myself to the ER, and, sat down, and that last go around, that last panic attack, after about the fourth one, I couldn't even speak. I was in the ER. I couldn't speak. I couldn't say anything to the ER doc. And the only thing I remember him asking me was, he said, "Is it out of your control at this point?"
Mm.
And
Mm.
I just shook my head. Um, so literally, he's like, "Okay, we'll take you back." Took me to the back. One of the nurses came in. Um, the company that I worked for at the time, I didn't realize they had those resources. That was another thing that I didn't know about, and that's something that I think people need to start, speak about and let people know. Because I wound up, it was a cope team. They have a cope team where they had an outpatient psych clinic and they had inpatient as well. But this cope team,
Mm-hmm.
these nurses would come in, evaluate the situation, give you paperwork and information, and set up an appointment for you to come in to be evaluated physically by a psychiatrist. So I went, and they decided that they wanted me to do outpatient therapy. So I had started outpatient therapy. I did outpatient probably for about 2.5 months. And I mean, literally, it got to the point where it was so affordable. I think I paid like $25 a day,
Mm-hmm.
and the insurance covered the rest and everything else. And luckily, at that time I had a manager that actually, believed in me. She had me. I was on board. I had been at that facility for almost 3.5 years, so
Mm-hmm.
she knew, my work ethic as a nurse before I got pregnant, the things that I did and how I operated. So she noticed the change in me as well with, just the care and my attention span and how I would work throughout those days. And, I had to sit down and have a conversation with her to kind of let her know, hey, this is what's going on. And she was all for me getting therapy. And I mean, it was days where if I needed to leave from work, she would let me leave from work to go to therapy. So
So,
I
Dr. Latonya, I just want to interrupt you there. Was it before you delivered? Because, we do see people having that existing depression. Did you ever have any depression before?
no,
Or for you, it started right when when
it
you were
started
pregnant?
it started after I had my son.
Oh,
Now, as a kid, we go through our traumas, and looking back now, I think that a lot of things probably played a role. Um,
right?
because I'm just a strong minded individual, and like I said, I achieved so much, and every obstacle that was supposed to stand in my way doesn't. Um, so most of the time, I would just, when things would happen, I would just take it in. Okay, that's what
Mm-hmm.
it is, and then push it to the back. So what I think eventually, you know, having my son was that breaking point. It was kind of
Breaking
that
point.
point of where, hey, you can't be strong through this one. You're gonna need some help with this
Absolutely.
one.
Yes, and in our community, you know what, though, Dr. Latonya, it's very common in our Black community. Mental health is recent. Taking care of our mental health is very recent. We never talked about it, and I think mostly the key thing is it's because of our family culture, and also we have extended families. You mentioned that you had your aunt, you had your mom, so usually these things could be masked. I want us actually to emphasize that to our viewers too, and also to what Dr. Latonya just said. I would like you to realize this: when you have your child, the minute your child comes out, and of course the placenta comes out, your progesterone, your estrogen, they drop those hormones. So that's another key thing that probably contributed to her depression. That hormonal imbalance, that hormonal change does contribute to how you feel. And of course, you are mentioning that pre-existing stress, like your childhood traumas you never addressed. So these are the things that get triggered, right? And
Yes,
of course, how long did it take for you to go back to work? Because some countries, like here in Canada, women actually have 1 year to
a
stay home with
year.
their kids. Yes, women, and of course, not myself because I'm self-employed, but typically women go back to work after 1 year. Those that are, that are employed, but we do see people going back, like myself. I went back to work within 10 weeks. After my baby was 10 weeks, I was back at work and I had cesarean section. So
Oh,
imagine if I didn't have the support. So truly, this affects also like your workload. So when did you go back to work? After how long? I want to know because that contributes to how you're gonna feel. I mean, the fatigue.
after 3 months, and literally, in the midst of everything, um, going after having my son and going through the changes and realizing that something was wrong, my relationship took a turn for the worse with his dad as well. We were engaged that we separated after when he was probably 2 months old. So literally, I had the stressors of, being a new mom, dealing with these feelings, having depression, having anxiety and panic attacks. Now I have the full workload that I need to bring money back into the home because now I've lost a source of income as well. So it
So
after
much happened for you.
after about 3 months, I was still breastfeeding. That was another factor too. I breastfed. So
Hmm.
still breastfeeding exclusively, going back to work and having to put him in daycare. I went back, I hit the ground running. I was working 2 jobs. So literally I was full time at one job, and then I was traveling back and forth to another city working another job as well. And still being trying to find that balance. So then that kind of suffered where I wasn't spending as much time with my son. So then the milk started to decrease, those things started to change. Then he started to get sick. So now I have that guilt feeling because I think I took off too quickly and I tried to make a difference, but I knew that's what I needed. That's what I had to do at that time. And then at one point I was working 3 jobs. So I had 2 jobs, 2 full-time jobs, and that PRN job where I was working in New Orleans as well. So, and then I started grad school too. So
How did you do it, girl? Like, honestly, and this is typical of women. Women don't complain, they keep going. And here you are now, multiple stresses, you lose your relationship. And the sad part is, that's why I said in the beginning for our viewers, bring your spouses in, because I would like men to watch their spouses or their partners closely, because postpartum depression, once, what we do see is baby blues, which we usually say they last a week, a few days, week, or maybe if they long will be probably 2 weeks. But if you notice your partner, your spouse is, like Dr. Latonya was withdrawn, she lost herself, and of course that depressed mood, locking herself, people were starting to ask her, come on out. So this is the time that is very crucial, because this is the actually time that where relationships they break down.
yeah, they do.
And it's because of the lack of education for spouses. I mentioned, who knows, maybe your spouse also went into depression for just this new baby that you guys had to take care of. How was he doing though? I would like to know, before you guys broke up, how was it for you?
It was still I think we were kind of on that outs, those outs. So it was
Okay.
already kind of rocky, but it wasn't
Right.
bad. Um, but actually me and him had a conversation, probably a couple of weeks ago.
Mm.
He actually apologized to me for, not being as supportive as he could be during that situation, but at the same time, his reasoning was I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't understand how to be there for you. I didn't know what to do in that situation. And so, I took that as I know, and I knew after and looking back at everything, because I had to recover and I had to recoup, because I did go into a really, really deep depression of where, I moved away and moved back home with my mom, and I left my son with him. But
Wow.
right before that, I did attempt suicide. That was the last straw for me. Um because I just felt so overwhelmed. I started losing everything. I was getting kicked out of my apartment. I had to file bankruptcy. I was behind on everything. So literally it was so much that happened over a course of a year that I felt like I couldn't push myself anymore.
How old was your baby? Oh, I'm so sorry to hear this, Latonya. How old was your baby during this whole time?
He was probably maybe almost 2.
Wow. You are at your breaking point, and you tried for
I did.
almost 2 years,
And as I said,
and you started your grad school. How did you get to a PhD program with all of this?
no,
And the
this was
same,
so this was the first attempt. I went to grad school 2 times. The first time I went was back in 2014. I got all the way up into I just had patho and form to take to become a nurse practitioner, and then I was going to be in clinicals. I got kicked out because I couldn't pass the physical assessment course. I kept making a C. I couldn't, and I think it was just because I couldn't comprehend and put it all together. And I remember going when I went home, when I moved home, I went because I went back to Magnique. So I went and I talked to the dean and one of the teachers, and I told them what was going on in my life. And I swear, both of them looked at me and they were like, "How did you get this far maintaining the 3.5 GPA and all of this is going on in your life?" And I was just like,
Yes.
I mean, you do what you have to do, and that's always been my mentality. I'm gonna always do what I need to do to propel and move forward. Now, whether it's gonna cripple me and paralyze me, that's how it
Yes.
did. So I
It
had to take
did.
that. I had to take that step back.
Wow. You know what, Dr. Latonya, you mentioned something powerful about you even went to a point of attempting suicide. What was going on? I would like to take me back there where you had reached that point, sis. Because to me, with the story, the background, this is way before you got your baby, got pregnant. Again, we keep going. How many people have clinical depression, not aware? Thank God to social media because there's people like yourself who are sharing their stories. Because a lot of times people don't realize they have depression, and there's a lot of stigma, and there's a lot of shame around it. And I would like our viewers to understand that clinical depression affects every race, every socioeconomic status. This is a professional who had it together but could not function to a point it affected her occupationally. She was kicked out of her apartment because she could not go to work and pay for her. This is how debilitating depression could be. This is terrible. And unfortunately, we don't talk about these things.
Yeah,
And then it gets to a point of loss of lives. Because, we do see women committing suicide, Latonya. We do see women, sometimes even it comes with psychosis
it
because of the
does.
hormonal changes. Yes. And some people, they even kill their babies. So, how did you? I would like you to take me there, sis. I'm so sorry for you to relive this.
Oh no,
Like,
it's fine.
yes,
I've gotten, I've been through so much counseling and therapy.
it's an
Like
ongoing
I'm
thing.
really okay, and this was always my goal. When I said when I get to the other side, I want to tell my story because
Yes.
it's so many people that look at me, and while I was going through, they had no clue.
No clue. Yes, there's this mask, and you had to go back to work. Your baby is 3 months. You have to go back to, and you said to me, you had to do what you had to do, and you had to be professional there, be ethical, and show up. And this is the most debilitating thing for women. They show up, and yet they're struggling. So take
And I
us there,
did.
sis.
So literally, I'm trying to think of what was occurring. Oh no. So yeah, me and his dad separated. So it was 2 months. I went back to work. We were in separate households at the time, but we were still seeing each other, trying to make it work, trying to see if we could figure it out. And I think that's where the huge toll came into play because I felt like he was playing with my emotions because he was doing things to, basically get under my skin, make me angry. And I felt like I'm like, okay, you're doing this to me, but I'm mentally struggling. Like you are aware of these things, but we're still going down this road and you're still playing. So it literally, like I said, we did that for a whole year. We did that for a whole year, going back and forth, going back and forth. And I think it took one time he did something that was really to the extreme of getting back at me, and I think that was when I was just like, I don't even want to be here. I don't even want to live anymore because here this is he's the only person that I've known. Like we've been in a relationship, we've been together for almost 9 years. We're engaged to get married. He's been through my journey, like my whole process, my all of my achievements, my accolades, every I met him, I was a freshman in college. So
Right.
I knew nothing else. So for that relationship to fall apart, me having to pick up the slack of being the head of the household, me having to go back to work and function and try to function, because it was affecting me mentally. I
Of
wasn't
course.
concentration. I had mistakes that were being made. My manager actually, she monitored me very, very closely. And like I said, in the midst of it, I was angry. I was like, why is she
Of
all over me
course. There's
covering?
a sense of loss in
But
any relationship.
I appreciate her for everything that she did for me through that time. Because it made a huge difference. And mind you, I had to tell the state board of nursing that this is going on because I'm on medications.
Yes.
I'm on
Yes.
Ativan and Clonopin and this medication for my anxiety, and I'm taking
Yes.
it 3 times a day, and I'm walking and talking like nothing's wrong. But that's controlled substances, so that can also
Right.
your mental capacity as well as a nurse.
Yes.
So it took literally it was a year. They investigated me, they watched me, they monitored everything. I had my manager monitoring. So it was like it was a huge ordeal
Oh
of
man.
everything
Yes.
kind of taking its toll. And I think once I lost the apartment, it was kind of like, okay, I know his dad's going to take care of him. My plan was to go back to the same city because I always wanted to be in the same city, whether we were going to be together or not. And that didn't happen because, I mean, and me leaving solidified the breakup.
Hmm.
That was the disconnect and the power that was coming apart from it. So I had to, because had I stayed there, I probably wouldn't be here today.
So it takes that. Viewers, this is quite hard on me. Like, I just can't imagine. I cannot comprehend the loss of a relationship that you had planned to build life together. It seems like you guys were childhood sweethearts. You wanted to build things together, and the sense of loss, that's hard. And then there's a child involved, and this is your permanent relationship, basically. It has to work somehow. And how are you guys doing with your co-parenting?
We're better. Times have changed. The communication has definitely gotten better over the years. Um, it's just it's an uphill battle, but knowing what I wanted, and I think that was the other hard part. What I wanted was that family. I wanted that for
Yes.
my son, for my kids in general. That was, as I always said, I'm not gonna have a kid and not be married because I come from a single parent household. I come from that. That's all I'm aware of. That's all I know. So I didn't want
Yes.
to subject my child to that. But it's a new normal. Things change, and like I said, it took time. It took years for us to
Yes.
even get to this space where we are now. And I just see it just getting better because he's in therapy. I've been in therapy. So, like, I know he's noticing, what he's done in the past and what he done was wrong. And I've reflected and I get to see things and I'm like, okay, well, I know I need to change this or I need to change that. And this is how we need to move forward. We can communicate. And that is, communication is key. If you're not communicating, it can cause a huge breakdown in a lot of things. And like I said, we've been back and forth to court in the earlier years, and I mean it's been a rocky ride since. you
Yeah.
know
And Latonya, you never imagined raising your child alone, and now lives with his dad. And as a mother, because I know that when we were talking before, that the sense of the loss not being together, and the loss of that motherhood, not experiencing your child every day. Thank you so much for viewers still here, because I know this is not a unique story. We see this all the time. Women go through this, men go through this. And the interesting thing you mentioned, Dr. Latoya, is when there's even rockiness in even relating, because it gets to a point of maturity when you have to be these co-parenting healthy people. Because now, and remember, the child is also suffering because at school, kids, they live with their mom and their dad. How is he explaining himself to other kids? It's just so hard for kids. But it's beautiful when you get to a point where you can be mature adults, and and parent this wonderful gift you guys have, because you have a full-time relationship. I am so pleased to say I'm very proud of you guys to get to that point, because in clinical practice, we see this all the time.
Yeah.
Parental alienation is very common, Latonya, and it breaks my heart when parents do this to their kids, because a child could never choose who he wants to love or she wants to love. He or she loves his parents equally. There's something one of the colleagues here, she came and said, a bad husband or a bad wife or a bad ex is not necessarily a bad parent. Let's take that in. Because a lot of times in the struggles of the sense of loss, you could just be so mean at this man, but you want the best for your son. And I think this is where women and men get stuck in that space. The vengeance. You understand? People want to give it back. But I'm so grateful that your partner went on therapy and saw his own blind spots. That's fundamental. And it takes so much. To me, it means that you guys care about this little boy
Yes.
because you want the best for him. And this is where actually we get stuck as physicians. When do we convince a father or a mother to come for therapy?
And that was the thing, because me and him, we even had tried therapy along the way, and he was against it then. So we went, I
Right?
think, for maybe 2 or 3 sessions. And after, after they start picking out and telling you, hey, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong, and, it's a two-way street. He couldn't
Right.
accept that. He couldn't accept it in that moment. So that's
Right.
why I said it took years. He's just getting to this point.
Wow.
I had to get to the point, I had to accept once I started therapy. It's like, okay, I'm doing this. This is what it is. I have to forgive myself
Right?
situation for leaving my son, for feeling like I abandoned him when I didn't. Because
Yes.
I had to better myself. I had to be in a better mental state so I can actually be here for him.
Right.
And on top of that, I need to be able to function as a human being, as a
Yeah.
person, and
As
be
a person before being a parent.
very.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it took a lot, and then my therapist like, you have to be able to forgive. So I had to forgive him long before. I knew I wasn't gonna. I thought I was never gonna get an apology. So my thought process was, I have to be able to forgive him, even though he's not gonna apologize for his part in that situation. And I never, that was one thing we always agreed. We never did anything in front of our son. We never argued. We never fussed. We never fought. None of that. And if it was something that we had a disagreement about where we thought we were going to, we never had him in that space, because I always said I don't want him to have to choose. I don't want him to have to feel like this is, oh, I have to do this. Oh, they're doing this, or they're feeling this way. That's my mom. That's my dad. I didn't want that, and his dad never wanted that. So like I said, the key factor I think that played a role was that little boy.
That little boy. That's powerful. Dr. Latonya, that's powerful, because this is where people are stuck. This is that anger when a relationship, when a person loses a relationship, there's that anger, there's that so much negative energy, so much vengeance, against that partner. And then unfortunately, children suffer in that process. And they are brought to us to assess, and you find that if you could have healthy relationship with each other and cooperate, this precious gift you have, because let's be honest, we do see children, of course, not only exclusive to people that are basically born out of wedlock. We do see children that decide, because of what they've seen with their parents, that I'm not going to have children, I am not going to get married. Have you seen that? Practice. We do see this, and it's because of the selfishness in the parents that are not mature enough to get to a point of parenting a child in a mature way, irrespective of the pain. Oh my gosh. And here you are. So how did you get to this point, Dr. Latonya? And I know it's a journey, because we get triggered. We human, right? How did you get here?
I can say Therapy. Um, I have a couple good friends that kind of walk alongside me. They've been with me throughout this journey, from the very beginning till now. Um, but a lot of it, and like I said, it's not easy because it's my situation is different. My son doesn't live with me, so that bothers me. That's a constant trigger for me. So I had to I've gotten back on medications. I've gotten off of it, because I felt I'm one of those. My body is resistant to certain medications. Like I can take something for so long and then it won't do what it's supposed to do. So we wound up having to change it again. So a lot of that switching of medications and changing things, and if you're on depression medicines, like it takes so long. It takes like at least 2 to 3 weeks for you to get the effects, and then you still could possibly go through those down moments where you're feeling even worse than what you did prior to getting on the medications. It's just the simple fact that you have to get through that phase of those things. So it's been a lot of up and down, up and down. I won't say my life is perfect because it's not. Um, Even now, I'm not on anything, but I still, within the last year, I started having my panic attacks and they started coming in a different form than what I'm used to. So I had to get back on my anxiety meds and, taking them at night and helping me sleep. So those things really play a role, but I think a lot of it is me having a support system, having a foundation behind me now, um, knowing what I've been through, and even just being able to pick up the phone. And because I know in the beginning, my mom didn't believe, she doesn't believe, she doesn't take medications for depression. And like I said, that's another thing. I'm going down my family history and learning things as well. And I know I didn't realize that so many mental illnesses runs in my family. So now I'm like, okay, this is probably hereditary, or I've probably been dealing with this, and most of the previous family members don't take anything for it because they don't go to the doctor for it. So, the changes of just having the foundation and having the people in my corner that I know I can call on if I feel like I'm having just an ounce of a bad day. I can
I
pick up
love it.
I can pick up that phone and it's a couple of people that I can speak to.
That's beautiful, sis. That's beautiful. And each one of us, we need that. We need our people in our corner where we could be vulnerable and you know, and just be raw. I'm so happy you have that in your life. And to our viewers here, it's such a beautiful moment to see Dr. Latonya, how she has journeyed in her life, as imperfect as it was, but she reached out for help. So don't suffer in silence. Don't suffer in silence. And also, the advice I always give to people, when you have a friend or a cousin or a sister who just had a baby, watch them closely, be there for them. This wire thing of hormones, even our thyroid gland, sometimes it just goes down, and you can be very fatigued, and it's easy to miss those symptoms because depression itself, you get the fatigue, you're so exhausted, the poor sleep. So if you have friends that are pregnant, get close, be there for them. And sometimes they could be abused in their relationship, and people that are abused, they don't talk about it. There's so much going on. So spare that moment and be there for these friends, more especially in the first 6 weeks postpartum period, because this is the time we see postpartum depression. The baby blues, they exist for a week or two sometimes, but when it's intense, feeling down, even feeling the guilt of not being good enough for this baby, you know, and your sleep is disrupted. There's panic attack, there's anxiety, they're not feeling. I think it affects us all, new mothers. They're not feeling good enough to care for this baby. And of course, if it's prolonged and you're feeling down low, lots of guilt, and with some suicidal thoughts sometimes, like I said, some women, Dr. Latonya was pressed to the core, like honestly to the edge. She had to go back to work within 3 months. So there's so much that happens. And sometimes, like she said, it happened way before actually she got pregnant. So she had some stressors she never did address. This is not unique. And I think COVID 19 has taught us, Dr. Latonya, we are with ourselves now. I'm
Yeah.
going back to my own childhood too. I'm dealing with stuff that I never dealt with in my own childhood. This moment has given us, all of us, to unpack our stories. So this is time to normalize therapy. To our viewers, let's normalize therapy. And if you are your doctor thinks you need medication, medication is depression is treatable. You guys, depression is treatable. And like I said, maybe it could be hormonal. Maybe it's your thyroid that's causing it. So it's important when you feel that low, don't sit in your corner. Come out of your corner, go be checked. We treat at least depression for 6 months, minimum period of 6 months. And some people, they need it longer. We have superstars, a lot of how many celebrities that are on antidepressants. So it doesn't choose no race, no socioeconomic status. Dr. Latonya is sharing with us that when she looks back now, lots of family members struggled with depression. So these are the issues that we don't talk about. And this is about time we start digging. Dr. Latonya, as we close, sis, do you want to share your word and, of course, how people can reach you? And, of course, please share about your meditation studio, please.
So yes, um, last year I became a certified meditation instructor. So I do have my meditation studio. It's virtual. It's called Relax and Rejuvenate Meditation Studio. So basically, what I do, what my plans are, and what I have set up so far is I'm offering meditation sessions to anyone, individuals, who are beginners who want to learn about meditation, who are intermediate or advanced learners. If you do want to come on, you can do a meditation session with me. Um, I have everything is on my link tree there that she has gone across the screen there, and then other journeys. I'm actually dropping my first master class today for introduction to meditation, the basics. So basically, that'll be like giving them an overview of everything as a whole about meditation, how to start your journey, things that I have in my sacred space that I meditate with, just a whole wealth of knowledge in those things. What else? What else? So my consulting business, I'm a legal nurse consultant as well. So I have a consulting business. I work with attorneys and help them bridge the gap between medical and legal. So basically, I review medical records, break everything down, pull out the meat and gravy out of that medical chart that you need to take to court if you do have to go to court or do anything. And I put a report and my chronological information. So pretty much I have all of that. Everything is on my link tree now. Should be if you need to access anything, if you need to email me, you can. If you want to sign up for emails to stay up to date with everything that I'll be producing. I do have a free meditation myth informational that's on there as well. Um, I have some of my work, my publications that I did for my doctoral capstone is on there as well. So pretty much everything is on that link tree. If you want to reach out to me, don't hesitate. If you have any questions or any concerns, anything that you want to know about or just inquire about, then you can definitely reach me on Facebook, Dr. Latonya Thomas, or Instagram, Dr. Latonya Thomas, or even the link tree. You can get to everything on there.
Sis, I want to tell you this. You are an amazing mom. Every time you share about your son, it's such a beautiful story. I look at your face, the way your facial expression. You are an amazing mom. Don't ever doubt that. And just know there's nothing perfect in this world. There
Yes.
is no perfect parenting model. Yeah, this is how your life turned out, and you are still the best mom. Just know that.
Thank
That
you.
little boy loves you
Oh,
and is okay with this imperfection. This is your life. This is the imperfect, perfect picture for you. And I'm so grateful to your ex for being present and also for turning around just for the beauty, for your own sanity, your own mental health, and for his and for your son. I really wish you well, you guys, and your journey is unique and it's just gonna be beautiful. And that boy will have a successful life because you guys chose him.
yes.
And again, our viewers, you guys, you heard Dr. Latonya share her imperfect story, but it ended beautifully. I think you just have a beautiful story because of your resilience. And honestly, I advise, if you have a similar story or your story, our stories are unique, seek help. Seek help. There's help out there. There's hotlines in our countries. Each country, I believe, has a hotline. Don't suffer alone. And again, I can't overemphasize this. If you have a friend that is pregnant, check on them. Please check on them. Postpartum depression is on the rise. I don't want to mention the loss of jobs that came with COVID 19 and the pregnancies that came with it. So people are going through so much. So let's be kind, loving, and understanding, not to judge people. People are going through stuff. Let's think about the things we're going to say to people now, because we don't know. People are going through stuff. So, again, thank you so much for staying with us. Next week, same place. I'm bringing another speaker here. This is amazing. I bring all these people with all these lived experiences so that you can know that you are not alone in your story. Thank you so much, Dr. Latoya. I wish you well in your businesses. Thank you, sis.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.